Okay, we're still in Halachas. As you'll see, it's a continuation, sort of, what we spoke about last time. We're talking today about containers. When you buy a jar of pickles or a bottle of wine or a can of tuna. The question we're going to start with is, I buy this can, I buy this jar of pickles. It's a glass jar, so glass size and Tevillas. So the question is, when I buy it, am I supposed to take this jar? I'm hyped to Tevillas. Now it was a guy's jar. Now it's my jar. So should I take the jar, dump out all the pickles, or pour out all the wine, and go Tevillas? What am I doing using this jar when it wasn't Tevillas? Okay, now it's a Yid's Kli. It was a guy's Kli. Now it's my Kli. So should I be hyped too? Okay, so that's the main question we're going to talk about, and related things that connect to it. Okay, so a number of contemporary poskim bring a quote from a Maral Diskin. Sorry that the words don't look so nice up here. Looks nicer on my screen. And that is, Maral Diskin says, he says, if you buy a kli with mashke in it, okay, so there's like a bottle of wine in this case, he says, you don't have to pour out all the beverages. Why? The Sheva Taisehu, Vloin the Kushimush. Okay? The Maral Diskin, in Cruise Maral Diskin, it's in the back of the Sefer. I'll give you the Marmuk, I don't remember. Kashrus Achron Kuf Lamed Bar. Okay, it's in the back of the Sefer. Okay, so a lot of people quote this Maral Diskin. Okay? That's not, I'm about to explain. I'm going to try to explain it to you. Okay? So as you can imagine, this is a okay, fine, I'll pass on what I'm about to say. Okay. So I had three versions of trying to understand what he meant. And I'll try to give you some nafkaminas to what that means also. Three versions. The first version is like this. Maybe the isser of using kli without titling it, that's an isser on the person, okay? So in this case, somebody else already did it. The isser is for the person to do it. Somebody else, in this case, somebody else put the pickles into the jar. Somebody else put the wine into the bottle. So they did it. So I'm not being over isser for using the kli. For me, it's Shabbat. For me, the other guy didn't. The other guy is the one who did it. Okay? A variation of that is. Okay? The isser is to use the kli. The isser is to go ahead. Chazal said, don't use a kli that wasn't Tevillas. Okay, I didn't do anything. I'm just, like in said, Shabbat Hasa. It's passive. What I'm doing is, it's just passive. I'm not doing anything, so I'm not being over isser.
From it. The isser,
so you think pouring out of it is using it? Okay, maybe. Well, so you think in the pickle jar is easier. I'm just pulling things out of it. Here, maybe I'm using the jar. Okay, maybe. I'm going to say a variation. When I give you enough is maybe you'll understand it. I'm not sure if it's going to be clear. The variations are the same thing. And the third one is that whereas the first said the isser is on the person, okay, and so somebody else did that isser. And my third variation I'm saying is the isser is on food. You can't put food into the container. Okay, the food was already put into it. Okay, now don't think from the person perspective. Think from the food perspective. The food was already put into the kli. So now it's Shabbat Tyson. That food was already put in. So what do you want from me? Don't put it in. The food already is in there. Okay, look, give me my nafkamin to see if that'll help explain the differences between what he's trying to say. The first nafkamin is what most people think of when they hear this first. They say is, okay, what happens if I want to put something back into it? Okay, I made kiddush, and half the cup is still in half the cup still has wine in it. I want to put that wine back into the bottle. Okay, so now, according to the first way that we said is, the problem is, it's on a person to do it, and someone else to do it. Okay, here I'm the one who's doing it. I'm the guy who's pouring the wine back into it. Or if you want to say it's Shabbat, it's passive to keep things in the bottle. Okay, now it's not passive anymore. Now I'm putting it back into it. Okay? On the third one, you could guess. You could say, yeah, maybe over here the food already was in this kli, and somehow the food can go back into the kli. The food like already was excused from an isser going in this kli. I would not have said that. Okay? I would have not said that. I would have thought that all three variations would say that. It happens to be Rabbi Yashiv, who's one of the people who quotes this Maral Diskin, many people do, says, or is quoted as saying that it's okay, you can put the wine back in. That's fine, you can put it back in afterwards, okay? I can't imagine how that could fit into either the first two reasons.
He brings the Maral Diskin?
Yeah, a lot of people bring the Maral Diskin. I'm getting to Ramesh in a second. No, he quotes this Maral Diskin, and he says, what about putting it back into it? He says, don't worry about it, it's okay. Now, it could be in the back of his mind was what Moshe could say. We're going to mention that in a second. Maybe that was like going on in the back of his mind. It's not quoted as that. This is not him speaking. This is someone saying what is written someplace else. So, I can't tell you, but I can't imagine according to the first two reasons. If you say the problem is that it's the issue on the person, so well now I'm the person. I'm the first guy. I'm putting it back in. You say if it's on the food, maybe he says somehow this food sort of like was already connected. I'm putting it back in. I can't.
And so therefore, new food you will not be able to.
Right. Well, I'm saying is so this pickle is basically new food. So you're saying maybe you could view the pickle as an old pickle. What do you say?
No, let's say together.
Then you wouldn't be able to. Yeah.
Right. So a new food.
Completely new food. We can't imagine anybody allowing you to do it according to this explanation.
Number three.
We don't know how to said that.
Yeah. The other thing is that if I have a brand new pickle I want to put into the official case. Okay,
we don't know
fine.
if you can't.
What do you say?
We don't know if Rashi said you cannot.
You cannot what?
Put a new pickle.
No, according to this, what this model, this kid, and this is going to pick up from a different jar and put it into here. Yeah. Okay. Another thing is like this. We've spoken about disposable spice grinders, and we found among. I think that we did not have it last time I was here. I didn't bring it to you. This is not the one I'm talking about. We found one that had a question on it that you should not be allowed to. That you should need to title that the grinding part before you title it. And it had metal pin to it. Okay, I found that I believe after we spoke about it this year. Anyhow, so let's think about somebody made this grinder. The question whether you should have hashgacha on it is a separate question. But let's say they made the grinder and I went and I bought it, and I have a grinder now that the grinding mechanism of it needs tevillah. So now, am I allowed to use that grinder? Am I allowed to take the stuff out of it? So now, if you say that the reason why what the Maral Diskin meant is that the food was already put into it. I didn't put the food in, the first one, or the third one, that the Issa was putting the food into it. Okay, so in these cases, all I'm doing, I'm just taking the food out. Okay, that's basically the only way to get the food out of the kli. It's through the grinder. Then it could be that the Maral Diskin would say, that's okay, so you can take it out. The fact that the grinder is being used doesn't make a difference. The second one. The second reason I said is that the focus on the Shevat Tasa. You're not doing anything when using this thing, and therefore you're not over an Isser because you're not doing anything. Well, in this case, I am doing things. Every time I grind it, I'm using the kli that needs to be titled. I'm using the grinder as the part that needs to be titled, and every time I grind some pepper, I'm using that grinder. Okay, so that would be if he focused, which he seems to be on the word, with Shevat Hasu, that is not doing anything, then in the grinder you have a shiloh. If the other parts are that someone else put the food in, then maybe you don't have to title the grinder. Maybe you could get the food out without that. Okay, now, this whole Hezbollah, this Maral Diskin, all talks about is all to explain why I could take my pickles out of the jar. Okay, that's all to explain why I could take it out. But once I get the food out of there, okay, so then he has no cooler. Like David said, if I want to put new food into that thing, then this doesn't give me any basis for them not using it afterwards. Okay, but there's another explanation. Ramosha says it, Sham Zalman says it. I believe others say it as well. A different explanation for why I'm allowed to take why I can take the wine out of the bottle. I don't have to worry about toiling that bottle, which is going to explain that I could even put new stuff into it also. Okay, so the Maral Diskin just explain why you can empty it out. He says, you don't have to quickly get everything out and toivel it. You can just empty it out slowly. Okay, and they say like this. When Ramosha brings rayas from Mishnayos, and I believe it's in Meiser Sheni, it's about a person who buys Meiser Sheni. He's allowed to spend your money on Meiser Sheni on certain things, and the Mishnayos talk about that the keilim that it comes with, in many situations, the keilim that it comes with you're allowed to spend the money on that, and when you finish, it doesn't have Kedushas Meiser Sheni in it. Okay, so all kinds of things that give an impression, give the feeling that those keilim, the containers that hold the food in the store, don't have the din of a kli. Those things are not treated as keilim. They're tuffle to the food, and they have no status as a kli by themselves. And therefore, when I bought the bottle of wine from the guy, what I did was I bought nothing. I did not buy a kli. When I go ahead and decide that I want to now use it afterwards to store my apple juice, I'm the one who made it into a kli. It wasn't a kli until now. Till now, it was just packaging materials. Okay, packaging materials are not chayv tefillah. And now I'm the one who took the packaging materials and decided this packaging should be a bottle. So a bottle is chayv tefillah. So I'm the one who made the bottle. Okay, it used to not be a bottle. We're going to see in later dinim. That if I buy a piece of metal from a guy and I turn that piece of metal into a kli, I'm not chayv tefillah. I'm no chiv to tevel that kli. I just have to. I made the kli. Hagam that I bought the metal from the guy, but I'm the one who made the kli.
Because over here, if I would have bought the barrel, I would be chayv tefillah.
If I would have bought the empty barrel, that's correct. That's correct.
He made an ice kli by selling. So he made an ice kli, and I'm.
Yes, that's great. And Moshe brings rayas from the Mishnah. He said, and even in that case, where he bought it in a ready-made kli.
If I could get some clothes by Satan, that's what happens.
Right.
So what about a Jewish-owned company?
I'm going to get to that at the end. Okay, that's going to be the end of this discussion. It's going to be about that. Okay, but for now we're dealing not with the Jewish company. Now I just bought the bottle where I bought it from from a guy. So we're going to have another example of that, even a little closer to that. Actually, has to do with Keurig, and that is an example which is about what happens if I bought a ready-made kli from the guy, and it was chayiv and tefillah, and then I went. This will adjust what David actually said, and then I go ahead and the kli gets broken, or I break the kli, okay, and I make it not into a kli anymore, and then I fix the kli. So the din is I'm not chayiv and tefillah in that case either. Okay, so even though it was a kli, I bought from the guy basically a good kli. When I bought it was chayiv and tefillah, then it broke. Under the right circumstances, if it broke and I fix it, then it's also not chayiv and tefillah. Okay, so even though it was a kli originally, but now it's not a kli. It was a not kli that I had. So the yid is considered made the kli, and it's good enough kli. Okay, so again, Rabbi Shulchan would say that, and that would explain not only why I could empty it, not only I could put my pickles back into the jar, but I can even put new stuff into it. Okay, I can empty out the pickles and put anything else I want to the thing. Okay,
The Jew made it into a kli.
the Jew made the kli. It was not a kli until now. It was right. It was not a kli.
After I'm empty, I can totally give it over for use and food use and
100% right. I can use it whatever I like to. Do whatever I want to makes no difference. Okay. So now, what we're going to spend some time on is to explain like this. In Chalvus Binyamin brings these chuvas, and he says he agrees with everything that it says. He agrees with the fact that it was not a kli before him. They have rayas, similar rayas, all of them from the same Mishnayos. It was not a kli until now. And the yid who bought it, the yid who decided to keep it as a kli, he made it into a kli. He agrees with that. But he says, even so, it's not enough. Okay? Even so, it's chayiv and tefillah anyhow. And he says, why is that? Because the yid who made the kli only did that in his mind. Okay? He didn't do anything. He didn't physically do anything to make it into a kli. It was just a decision that this packaging material is now a bottle, and that doing it in your mind is not enough. Okay, why would he say such a thing? So he says something based on the words of a Prima Gadol. Okay, and what we're going to do now is just go through the Prima Gadol to try to understand what he says, and to understand why. You'll see why I don't think that that's the right way to read.
that's it. So he's arguing in them?
Yeah, he says straight out. He says, and I found that they said that even so, I have a right from Prima Gadol that it's not correct. Okay,
So who's my the owner of the company? That's
the owner of the.
Food company?
No. He agrees that the owner of the food company is not a kli when that person made it. But I, the yid, who decided that this packaging material should now be a jar, I didn't do enough to make it into a kli.
Okay, good.
No. So it is a kli. No. Now it's a kli, and the kli is chayiv and tefillah. And even although I'm the one who made it, I didn't do enough action to make it into a kli. Just deciding that it's a kli is not enough.
It wasn't.
It's not a kli.
It is a kli. Okay. But
In other words, it's not enough Jewish involvement. This was made by a guy, and I made it into a kli.
Yes.
Well, I made it into a kli with just machshava, so that doesn't. And you need Jewish action, though.
Yeah.
More Jewish.
Okay, so
What's right? Every time the chayiv and tefillah, the goyish kli is chayiv and tefillah. Not that you have to make. It was made by a koyis.
correct. So you say, and therefore what? So you're saying, so it's a nobody made the kli then. Okay.
Yeah, that's right. The problem is good. If the kli's not so it's not chayiv and tefillah.
Okay. So you're arguing on the logic of it. Okay. Well, let's see inside. Let's see what it says inside. It's going to be harder to understand. This part I could at least understand. But if you can say even more, that you're going to hopefully I think you'll find even harder to understand. Okay. Let's see what it says. Okay. Now, what I'm going to do is like this. Ask your patience. Okay. I'm going to show you Prima Gadol. No. I'm going to show you Prima Gadol. Okay. I'm going to show you the Prima Gadol is in a bunch of steps. Okay, and what I did was I put the whole thing on. You'll see why in a second. I'm going to put the whole thing's coming onto the screen, but the dark words is what we're looking at, and the other ones you just be patient and wait. We're going to get to it. We're going to see it all. Okay, they're just in order. Okay. Okay, what does it say like this? There's the Prima Gun like this. It's an Aruch. Okay, cheaply. He says it's partial to me. In Kani Yisrael blech mi'akum. Okay, the Yid bought a blecha, just sheet of metal from a guy. V'yichtei kach l'teller, and he decided to make it into a plate. Okay, he decided to take this piece of metal. He decided it's going to be a plate tzarach tefillah. Okay, you got to type it. V'af the bracha efsher, and could be even you have to make a bracha when you do that tefillah. The loy nishtana shem akum. So, what does that mean is, I took this blech, okay, and I decided to make it into a plate. He says, so you have to type it. So he says, why do I have to type it? I decided it should be a cleat. It used to be nothing. It used to be just a sheet of metal. Okay, it used to just be a sheet of metal. And I'm the one who decided that it should be a plate. It didn't used to be a plate, and now I made it into a plate. So why am I chayav in tefillah? It must be because I did nothing to turn it into a plate. I didn't have to do anything to make it into a plate. It was just a decision that it should be a plate. I didn't do anything to make it a plate. It was in my mind. I made a decision that it should be a plate. So therefore, he says that tells you that just by deciding is not enough. You have to do something. This is just a decision. I decided that this blech should be a plate. That's not enough. Okay? Now, that's one part. Now, this is the end of the Prim Gadol, the end of the part I'm giving you. Maybe very good. This is the end of Prim Gadol. Okay, now he goes a step further. Okay. Even, not only is it if the Yid does in his mind, but even if the Yid does a little bit of action, but not enough action, that's still not enough to make it a clay. Okay, and that's from the words before this in the Prim Gadol. Okay, and that's like this. V'revaisen, Shekani Yisrael mi'akum, V'revaisen, a grader. Okay, Shekani Yisrael mi'akum blechen, a Yid bought, again, sheets of metal from a guy, umenakvan, and he poked holes in them with clay meters. I'm not sure what that is. Okay, whatever it is. But I'm not sure if he needs to type it. Why? Skip a few words over here. He says, Hasam, ain't shame akum olav klal. It wasn't a guy's. Meikara nascha va'atakli. It used to be, in the case that he's bringing from in the little words, okay? In that case, I took a piece of metal and I turned it into a kli. Masha'en came blech. In this case, where I took the blech, Rak Yisrael menakle va'oisamida, the Yid just poked holes in it and made it to shape, or to the size. Yesh lem etzil b'bracha. He says, what did the Yid do? He took a sheet of metal, and how do you turn a sheet of metal into a grater? Well, what does that mean? That means is you poke a lot of holes in it. Like he said, you poke holes in it, and now when you're going to rub your potato against it, it's going to get.
Not just a sheet of metal.
Right, we're coming to that. So he says, if I take the blech and I made it into a grater by poking a bunch of holes, and now it's a grater. I mean, think about it. If you punch holes into a piece of metal, now you scrape your apples on it, it's going to make applesauce out of it. Okay, so I made this grater. He says it's tefillah without a bracha because I didn't. So again, Chazal says, why not? He says, obviously it's because, here I did something, I poked all the holes in it. He says, I didn't do enough. So it's not enough that I have to do something, but I have to do something that's meaningful in order to do it. And this, the Prim Gadol, this Mesufik, maybe poking holes is not meaningful enough. Okay? So, we're going to get to this in a second. So let me just finish his thought, and then we'll get back to understanding what he said. So he says, and therefore, if I take a pickle jar, and I decide that I'm going to use it to store other food in afterwards, I did nothing. He said, even if I take a tuna can, so a tuna can, you have to do something. You have to open it up in order to make it usable. When it's closed, you can't use it at all. I have to, open up the can and be able to use it on the inside. Even then, that's not considered that I did enough. That, he says, is like the sheet that was turned into a grater. And all those things, Yechayiv and Tefillah, because Hakam that they didn't make it into a kli, he didn't do enough to make it into a kli. It's only if you take mamash, a piece of metal, and you shape it into into a cup, then you be chayiv, then you pass from you. Okay, so now, before we talk about the reasons why we have questions on this, obviously the fact that he is saying not like Rav Moshe from Zalman already tells us that we have to wonder whether this is accurate. Okay, but he tells you himself, he's not shy. He tells you that they say not like that. Okay, but he says, look, I have a right from Prim Gadol. Okay, fine. Now, I have three questions. First question is, you may or may not like this. Okay, if the Prim Gadol is telling us this new idea, which is that it's not enough for a Yid to make the Kli. The Yid's got to do a significant action in making the Kli. Seemingly, maybe you'll argue with me, the second case of Prim Gadol should have been the first case. First, he should tell you that if you do nothing, then it's part from Tevillah. It's Chayiv in Tevillah, because you did nothing. So tell me the first, because pshitally, if you buy the blech and you charge for a plate, then it's nothing. Right, so, okay, maybe disagree. He sounds... What do you think?
He's saying that
it's a whole new... This is news over here that you have to do something. So first, okay, maybe you don't think it's a question. Okay, I'm not sure I can answer the question with my answer, but okay. Okay, next is... The Chazal himself brings in a different place, not right on this spot, that there's a Sifri that actually says, not like what he says. Okay? Not like what he says the Pri Megadim says. Okay, don't call it that. What he thinks the Pri Megadim says. Okay, the Sifri says if a person buys Golmei Keilim, okay, Golmei Keilim means just like forms of Keilim, like roughs, like not finished Keilim, and you decide and you use them for Keilim. So the Sifri says you're not Chayiv Tevillah. You're not Chayiv Tevillah because the Yid made it. Okay, so what's going on here? The guy finished it. What did you say? He finished it. He took some, maybe this, not the pasha that he had finished it. He took the kale and he used them as is. It's like not finished, and he used them. He decided he's going to make it into a clay.
Did somebody do it?
I believe he did not do anything. I don't remember. I believe it did. I seem to remember. It's a Sifri. Himself. He says, and it's not like what I told you in the Pri Megadim. Not in that spot. This is in a different spot. He says, you should just know, it's not like what I said over there in the Pri Megadim, so it's like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, okay, so, but that to us is a question. That's not an answer. The question is like, well, are we sure the Pri Megadim said that we're saying this for you, not like that? Okay? And then, the logic of it, in this last case, is the hardest to understand, which is, you say the Yid has to do something. Wouldn't everybody think that if you take a piece of metal and you poke holes in it to turn it into a grater, that's doing something? And if you have to do something, you say, it's not enough to do it in your mind. Okay, we can maybe wrap our heads around it and say, you have to do something. But I did something. I took a sheet of metal, and I mean, if you rub potatoes on sheets of metal, you don't get, shredded potatoes. What? He makes it to shape. I think it's what he makes it. Yes, I mean, what are you saying? The guy did something. He poked holes and he made it to shape. So he didn't do enough. What does he have to do? What do you think the person says? Now the Pri Megadim was something about it if he did enough. But what does he have to do to make it into a clay? If I take a piece of metal, I make it into a cup. That's doing something. I take a piece of metal, I poke holes in it and turn it into a grater. Oh, not a clay. What do you say? No, so that's not correct. Because earlier he had said that a grater is considered a clay. That's in your Chayiv Tevillah. But in the little words, you'll see that too. A grater is Chayiv Tevillah. He talks about that graders are Chayiv Tevillah. It's not that's not a kli. I did something. So what do you mean? I took a piece of metal that was worthless. Basically, it wasn't worth it. I turned it into okay. So it seems to me that we could re-understand, like David hinted at, but we don't have to guess. Okay, we're gonna see ourselves. The Pri Megadim himself tells us what the blech is. Okay, this blech that we're talking about. As this is why I'm showing it to you like this. This is not the beginning of the Pri Megadim. Okay, the Pri Megadim at the beginning tells us what the blech is that he's talking about, and we'll get a better understanding then about what's going on. And that's like this. Okay, he's talking about before I get there. He's talking about like this. You remember we took some time ago a machlokes Taz and Shach. Okay, about it was talking a sakish shchita. The Machaber said a sakish shchita does not need tefillah. And the Rama says you should type on it. That you should do teal on it. Okay? What's that? It's a kli that's used only with raw food. It's not used with it doesn't cook the food, and it's not used with food that you eat at a meal. So the Rama said you should type. There was a machlokes in that din when the Rama said you should be machmir to tyvel sakin shchita. Did he only mean to say it by a sakin? The Shach says he only means it by a sakin because knives could be used for meal food also. You could use a knife to cut an apple and eat it. And therefore, a knife is something that's at least in the parsha of things that are possible to use for meals. And therefore, a knife is, if you do the knife for not, you use it for raw food, you type it without a bracha. That's the Shach says. And the Taz says no. What the Ramah means is, anything that has to do with the preparation of food, anything from the very beginning till the end that has to do with the preparation of food, to make it ready to eat, or to bring it to eating, is Chayiv Tevillah without a bracha. Okay? That's the machlokes about sakin shchita. Okay? So now, the stippelhalter, a red loch. Okay? If you have the red roller is like a rolling pin. Okay? So you use stippelhalter, both rolling pins and things that you use with raw dough. So what is it? Taz til by bracha, ula shachin tzarich tefillah. Shaman siman kufchav. Okay? If the shach and taz say, machlokes shach and taz, but the rolling pin needs tefillah. A rolling pin you can only use with raw dough. And so you can only use it with things that are not edible. So the Taz would say tefillah without a bracha because it's something used in the preparation of the food. And the Shach says, no, there's nothing to do with it with finished food, and therefore it's not chayav tefillah. Okay? That's what he starts with. Okay? That's what he starts with, the Taz and the Shach. Okay. Next. Blechin shemanichim matzahs aleim. Okay? When you have a blech, that you put matzahs aleim. What does it mean you put matzahs on them? We'll talk about that in a second. After Shach tefillah. Even according to the Shach, you have to do tefillah on those. Why? The chazi, the tashmish, Michael, mamish. Okay, you could use it for real food. So what he means to say is, the Shach says you're only chayav in tefillah for something that has some use with food that you can eat at a meal, and the blech you can, because as you're going to find out in a few lines from now, he's going to tell you that you can use it as a plate. Okay, so it's a thing that you could be chayav, that it has food use, and therefore even the Shach agrees that this thing is chayav in tefillah. Now, even if you're even though you're not using it for the food, what does that mean? You're not using it for the food as a plate. It means we can give two guesses what he means. What
if you're baking matzah, then it's up.
So the answer is you're not using it to bake matzahs. He's using it either. I had two guesses what he meant by using it. Either using it as a peel. Okay, a peel is the kli that you take the food in and out of the oven, like in a pizza in a pizza shop, that long stick with the thing at the end, and you take it, that's called a peel. Okay? Ramot uses it in Aruch, that word also. It's an English word. So, a peel. And you pull the stuff out of it. So you either use this blech like that, like you use it to pull things in and out of the oven, so you don't bake with it, but it's different. It's like a spatula. It's the same thing. It's not used with. If you use it with cooking, you're saying if you use the spatula in the thing. Okay, so I'm not sure if it means a peel. I'm not sure if a peel does or doesn't. But my other guess was maybe it's like a cooling rack. Okay, so manichel hamatzahs aleim means that you put the matzah on when they come out. It's like a cooling rack. Okay, well, a cooling rack it touches the food, but it's not for the cooking. It's not for the eating. It's like an in between. That's not for cooking the food. That doesn't make the food ready to eat. You think that's what I mean? That's also considered food? Okay, fine. So you don't have to like my choice. You come with your idea. What'd you say?
I'm using metal glass surfaces. The bottle will get also
so, well, if you have one with holes in it, so you do well. Okay.
That's what it made
Okay, so, but and somehow the blech that he was talking about was a kli that was used for food that was not ready to eat. Okay, it was not used in cooking. You don't like my choice. You can make your own guess as to what it is. I don't care. So he said, so you would think that this blech is totally the machlokes Taz and Shach. That's what you would think. It's totally that machlokes, just like the rolling pin is. But he said, but it's not true, because really you can use it with finished food also, so even the Shach agrees. And we know what he's talking about. You can use it for real food, because he's going to say in a second you can use it as a plate. Okay, so now, if so, when we're talking about a piece of metal, the blech that the Pri Megadim is talking about at the end, when he says that if you take this blech and you try to use it as a kli, you're not chayvin to tevel it. We're not talking about a thing that's a slab of metal. It's not a Shabbos blech, okay? Or at least they didn't use it like we use a Shabbos blech, okay? But this piece of metal had use for food. So now the question is like this. I have a kli that is able to be used for food. Okay, it has a food use. It's a cooling rack, or it's a peel, or it's some other thing that we don't know about. It has these uses for food. And I decided to use it for a different type of use for food. Now, it happens to be that it switched from being a use that was not chayav in tefillah, and I have a use that is chayav in tefillah. So that's the question here. Is that decision to use it from a not chayav in tefillah to a chayav in tefillah, is that going to make a difference? Because this is not making a kli anymore. I didn't make a kli. I took an existing kli and I changed the use that it had. The use that it used to have a use as a kli that was not, as a rolling that was not chayav in tefillah, and now I made it for a use that is chayav in tefillah. It's correct. No, without no. Even the Shach. No. Because the whole Ramah says you should do tefillah bracha. And Sakha Shchita, they're going on a second. No. The Ramah, the Sakha Shchita, the Ramah says you should do tefillah. The Ramah says do tefillah bracha, and the Taz and Shach are expanding on that. What happens if I could also use it for food?
But he's saying it's both not left, but you don't fit into that Shach. This is partially for clean.
No. He says the chazil tashmish, my chamamish means the Shach says if it's a thing that has some potential use for food, then it's like a sakha shchita. That's a sakha shchita. That's a description. Because he doesn't tell you that. You understand that. Everybody knows what the Ramah says, tefillah without a bracha. The Taz and Shach are talking about exactly which case the Ramah means is. So he says this example, this blech, is an example of what even the Shach would agree. I mean, this is within the range of things that they're talking about, but this is one where the Shach does agree. It's like a saklat shechita, not like a rolling. So so the shaila at the end of the Pri Megadim here is, he's not talking about whether in your mind is making a decision or not. That's not, everyone knows, just because you change in your mind doesn't make a difference. If I made it into a kli, I made it a kli. The shaila is that I took a thing that was a kli, and I made it from a kli from a kli that had one use to a kli with a different use. Now it happens to be that in Hilchos Tevillas Keilim, that's a significant change. It went from a kli that was not chayv in tefillah to being chayv, that kli was chayv in tefillah. But in use, it was always a kli. So should we look at that as a kli, that I made a kli from a piece of metal into a kli? And he says, no, that's not what you did. You took a kli and made it into another kli. So making from one kli into another kli is not something, doesn't excuse you from tefillah. It was a kli the whole time. Okay, again, the weakness is not that I didn't do enough. The weakness is that the kli was a kli the whole time. The fact that it could be used as a kli before him, that the blech, shamanich, and matzah was...
So you think the blech at the end is a blech shamanich and matzah salim?
It's the same thing. A blech is a blech. So when he said blech, shamanich, and matzah salim was explaining blech and these things, these called the blech. Shamanich and matzah salim. So you think is, if you only put matzahs on, let's say my way, okay? Let's say you don't believe it, okay? Let's say, just as the example, you use it for a cooling back. So that case sounds like it should be an example of the Taz and Shach also. Okay, but it should be an example because you use it only with food that's not ready to eat. You would think that that's what it is. He says it's not correct. The Manich HaMatzah is the explanation for why you would think it's totally not machlikas Taz and Shach. Because since you put the matzahs away, it's like an in-between. It's not for cooking, it's not for eating. It's just like in-between, somehow in-between.
So again, so you're saying the blech at the end is this blech that's roiv, was a kli suda already?
No, it was not a kli suda. No, that's the point. It's not a kli suda. It's a kli that's used not for a suda. It's used in between.
I'm sorry, not suda. Kli Michael.
It's a kli. Yes, it's a kli that has.
It's not a sheet of metal.
No, it's not a plain sheet of metal.
It's not a hammer that I buy in the store that I use it for walnuts.
It's a kli that's used for food, but it's used for food that doesn't make it chayv in tefillah, or potentially doesn't make it chayv in tefillah. Theoretically, doesn't make it chayv in tefillah.
So, but if that's what he's talking about, then what's the chiddush? Then it's pashut. Then you bought a kli of Michael.
No.
See, the Shach says you have to title it, right?
Yeah.
So you bought a kli from a guy that you have to title. It's like buying a kli from a guy. It's like, I don't know.
What was that? What?
It's like buying a kli from a guy. Particularly in Koni, it's so blech me akum. Ichta kach latella. Well, forget the ichta latella. You bought a blech from a guy that's made for menich matzah saleh. Right? So then what's the
case not for bracha? That's it. He changes the usage of it.
So your Yossi is
correct. He would have left it for matzahs. So right, so you still have to title it.
You have to title it without a bracha.
That's going to the Shach without a bracha.
No, going to everybody without a bracha. If you use it just lemiach matzah, and you'll do it without a bracha. That's for sure. You only have to do it without a bracha. And then at the end, he's telling us is if I buy from him now, it's pashut. I didn't. Of course, I'm chayv in tefillah. That maybe even you have to make a bracha on that. Okay, but it. And our middle case with the grater, okay, with the middle case with the grater, over there, the person took this piece of metal, this blech. The taka could be used for different things. Okay, it could be used l'haniach matzah aleim, shemanich matzah aleim. Okay, you could put matzah onto those things. There, the person went ahead and made it into a better kli. He again made a change that made it from just a kli into another kli. He made it from a regular kli into a better kli, into a kli that you can use even with finished foods. So there, the Pri Megadim is mesupik. Maybe the guy did such a radical change. Maybe that's mamash like a param chadashos. Maybe that's mamash like a brand new kli that that would maybe even part you from tefillah. Okay. So the nafkamina is if I have to, I'm gonna show you that what I'm saying and he's saying are almost the same. I know it's going to sound funny. They're almost the same with the following nafkamina. He's saying it's like this. The Chalmos is saying, when the Pri Megadim is talking about making a kli in your mind, I can't explain the other case. Making a kli in your mind, the weakness is the person did it in his mind. Do it in your mind, the Chazal is saying that's not enough. You didn't do enough just to do it in your mind. I'm saying to you is, when a person buys a Kli that was always usable as a Kli until now, the fact that I decided to use it for a new thing doesn't change anything. The fact that I could so easily do it just by changing it in my mind tells us that the whole time it was really a Kli. So we're looking at it the same thing from different sides. He's looking and saying is, if you did it in your mind, that's not enough. The weakness is with you. And I'm saying it's not that it's a weakness with you. It's that it's a weakness in the Kli. This was always a Kli that you could eat out of, because if I could just change it in my mind, tells us it was always a Kli that you could eat out of. Okay? And the nafka between those is the pickle jar. Okay? The bottle of wine. Over there, he says is, in my mind, it was just in my mind. If I made the change in my mind, that's not enough. Changing in your mind, that's not enough of a change. And I'm saying is, if what we care about was it a Kli beforehand, there, the head rayas that this thing is not considered a Kli beforehand. It was not a Kli. So the fact that I could change it in my mind doesn't mean that yesterday it was a Kli. When I bought it from the guy, it was not a Kli. Even though in my mind I was able to change it, that's not a raya that it was a Kli all along, because it's not true. Till now, it was packaging materials. The fact that I could change it in my mind is not indicative that until now it was not a Kli. Okay. Let's move on. We're almost finished. We have to just... Oh, I'm going to say something else. Okay. Let me give you another thing, and then we'll go on to the last piece. I told you that what Ramosha is saying is more inclusive or more kal than the Maral Diskin. The Maral Diskin said you could just empty it out. And Ramosha is saying now, could you empty it out? You could even refill it. You could even put new stuff in afterwards, because you made it into a Kli. What would be, I wondered if according to Moshe, you could ask the following. What happens if you want to empty out, in this kind of a disposable grinder? Okay? In this case, the grinder doesn't need steel. The grinder is all plastic. Okay? But the jar is glass. So we spoke about it. We said when we spoke about it back then, we said we're only going to talk about the grinders, because we're not going to talk about the bottom. Because the bottom, everybody knows you can just empty it out. Okay? So would you be allowed to empty out this grinder over here? And the reason why I'm wondering is like this. When the Maral Diskin said that Sheva Taisa, would you say that Sheva Taisa when, in this case, in order to grind, you need to use the glass? Okay, the way the grinder works is you got to go like this. You got to grind by using the glass. So, would you say when you say I want to empty out the bottle, it's Sheva Taisa? I just got to get the stuff out. The only way to get the stuff out is just pour the bottle. It's just the only way to get it out. I stick my hand in and pull out a pickle. But over here, the glass that's here is not Shabbat Taisa. The glass that's here is part of the grinding. If you go like this, you're not going to grind anything out of this thing, okay? The grinding needs the glass, so I just wondered if that Shabbat Taisa applies to this kind of a bottom also, okay? Everybody looks at the bottom and says, no, don't worry about it, you can just empty it out. I just wondered, because it's not like a regular spice container that you're just basically pouring it out. You're just the only way to hold it. Over here, the bottom plays a role. I'm not sure about it.
Okay. If you have a big bottle, you would refill it just to be able to use the grinder.
No, so if you refilled it, then you would for sure be chayav to type of the bottom.
But not just as a container. I'm saying it's the kind of thing you would use, not just as a container.
So you're saying is maybe in this case the packaging is more of a container. It's more of a real container than just more than just packaging. Okay, that's a point. Maybe that is. Maybe that's an argument also. Maybe it's more than packaging.
Well, but the glass is holding it. It's the two plastics over here. It depends what you hold.
Okay, you're right. He's saying, if I just turn this part, the glass is turning.
Yeah,
he's saying that's mamela. That's mamela. He says, it's just a way to rub the two plastics against each other. Okay. Now, so what Yossi mentioned beforehand is all that we're saying here is talking about from the perspective of the guy who bought the Kli ready. He bought the bottle of wine, and he wants to know if he could. Take the stuff out. Does he have to table it right away, or can he take the stuff out slow? So a related question that is whether a yid who owns a company, whether he's mechuyev to table his things before he sells them to us. Okay, when Keilim puts the wine into the wine bottles, do they have to table their bottles before they sell them to us? Okay, or more closer to home, when Illinois Nut sells trays of chocolate, do they have to table those trays before they sell them to us? If they're taking a container, they're putting stuff into it. So now we just said is, if I get it and all this, you can empty it out. You don't have to table it. You can empty it slowly. If there's 10 pieces of chocolate, you can eat them one at a time. And when you're finished, then you'll deal with tabling it. You don't have to empty it right. Okay, that's from my perspective. Okay, but what about from his perspective? He, the Yid who owns that thing, is he mechuyev to table it before he sells it to me? Okay, or is it bottles or his trays? Is he mechuyev to do tzil nosa with that? Okay, so the moral discount obviously makes no sense over here. The moral discount was talking about me emptying it out because I can empty it slowly. I don't have to think about that. Obviously, that makes no sense here.
What do you mean makes no sense?
Doesn't apply. It wouldn't be a tzad l'hakel.
He owes chayim.
That's not a tzad l'hakel. If the whole reason why I can empty it out.
The Keilim over there.
What?
It's not buying empty Keilim.
He buys a stack of trays, and then he sells them to you. So that tzad to say that I'm allowed to empty it out slowly doesn't help him. That only helps me. That doesn't help. According to that, he'd be chayv tova. Okay. So what do you say? So within in Mirtashem next. In Mirtashem,
No, I bought it for an empty cleat.
So every place like that. You buy flat.
In Mirtashem.
From
Mirtashem next time we're going to talk more. Some person who specifically talked about the shayla. But for our purposes, what Ramosha says is going to apply to here also. Okay, Ramosha said was that from the perspective of the seller, this is just a packaging material, so that's what it is. From his perspective, it's not a kli. In fact, last time you remember, we spoke about, which is why we're talking about on this din, the Beis Yosef spoke about klei schayra. Okay, Taz brought it. Called about klei schayra, things that you have for doing business with. So the example that Beis Yosef is talking about is a person who owns, he buys cups in order to sell them. He has a business, selling cups. So for him, the cup is klei schayra. He's not chayv in tefillah. The guy who buys it from him is chayv in tefillah.
This is a totally separate thing.
I got it. But we said then also that Rabbi Yashiv said a step even beyond what we're saying today, which was if I buy a tray to give shalach manas to my friend, I buy a plate that I'm going to put food on to give you to serve at your shalom zachar, I'm not mechuyev to tefillah. Because for me, I'm not mechuyev to tefillah. Because for me, it's also klei schayra, which is to say like this. Klei suda means is I have this klei in order to eat on it. If I have it for any other reason, that's not considered klei suda. So I have the klei in order to sell to you. I have the klei in order to put chocolate onto it, that you should use the chocolate to eat on it. That's not considered. That was saying. Rabbi Yasha is saying it in an extreme case, and Illinois nut is close to that. I mean, Illinois nut is really close to that because in Illinois nut, when they put food on a tray, they're putting food onto a tray for people to use at a suda. It's just not their meal. It's just going to be my meal. When they put the thing on the tray, the idea is I'm going to open the tray and eat right out of that tray. So they mamish put the food on the tray for me to eat out of it.
I'm going to sell this and make money.
So you're saying from their okay. So you're saying from their perspective, Marsh, it's a business.
Yeah.
I sell chocolates and I sell trays and okay. So
I can charge money.
okay. So in fact, I mean, Rabbi Yashiv's case is even more extreme than this. His case where I give my friend the plate. I say you can keep the platter and then you could you'll use it at your shalom zachar. I don't have to type it. Now, I mean, in fact, we do this. I mean, obviously, you know that Kevin doesn't type their bottle, but we, in the Illinois nut trays, come with a sticker on the bottom that says this tray was not typed. Okay? Because most people would assume that, of course, it's a Jewish store. Of course they title that tray. Of course they title it. So they have a sticker on the bottom that says this tray was not typed. Okay? Or this tray needs to by the consumer.
No, it doesn't. According to Moshe, it doesn't. Yes, it does.
Oh, so he's saying you're right. If the logic why he doesn't have to type is because you're right. He's saying if the logic why we're letting it is because we're saying is for them it's klei schayra. I'm the one who made it into a kli. So then he's right. So then I'm the one who. What is it? No. So let's think of this. He's saying that I bought it as a kli. I have it as a kli. So if I bought it as a kli, then I'm mechuyev to.
It's a kli.
Right. So he's saying why is it much as example?
Well, no, I would take one and take it home with him.
David. No, David. What's the difference between?
Yeah.
What's the difference between this and my buying the pickle jar from Elastic and I decide to keep it as a jar? What's the difference? In both cases, it used to be klei schayra and I made it into a kli. What's the difference?
This jar is made for business. So it's a tray. God, he buys trays and sells them.
He buys it he buys it for schayra.
He's selling it to you. He's selling it to you to be able to use on the table. I mean,
You guys does as well. A typical jar.
Okay, got it. So what he's saying is like this. So the Mechaber said this case. He said a Yid bought something from a guy, lachter klothim, and then he sells it to another Yid afterwards. Okay, so a guy owned it first, then the Yid owned it, and then another Yid owned it afterwards. But the Yid in the middle owned it as klei schayra. Okay, we use that word, it's not really Kli. It's not for Kli Suda. The middle unit owner not Kli Suda. The din is that the second guy does have to title. Because even you might think that the middle guy cleansed it. The middle guy made it into not a Kli, and now the new guy is making it into a Kli. That's not the din. The middle guy, it was a guy's Kli, now it's a Yid's Kli, it needs to be titled. Even though in the middle it passed through somebody who excused it from Tevillah, a Yid who excused it from Tevillah, even though it's Chayv in Tevillah. So in this case, the tray, the platter was bought from a guy, it was Chayv in Tevillah, and now it's owned by a Yid, it's Chayv in Tevillah. The fact that in between someone had it for Klei Schreiber, it's not enough. As opposed to...
Yeah, it's okay. Otherwise, nothing's Chayv in Tevillah.
As opposed to...
Otherwise, nothing's Chayv in Tevillah, because every time a guy manufacturer makes something, he's doing it for Schreiber.
Right. As opposed to the case of Moshe, even the person who made the bottle originally, the people who make bottles for Keilim, those bottles are meant for Schreiber. They weren't even by the guy's perspective, even the original manufacturer didn't make it as a clean that you're supposed to eat out of. When they make pickle jars,
it's a Torah of the Gabra, out of the Chetzer.
No. What I'm saying is that in the pickle jar, the people who made the pickle jar also made it for Schreiber. That's what they made the pickle jar. There's a jar that we sell to pickle companies so they can deliver pickles to your house. Okay, and then you throw them in the garbage. They're not meant to be used for food. As opposed to the tray that Illinois Nut buys, those people are making trays for people to serve food in their houses on. Now, Illinois Nut sort of misdirected it, so to speak, for temporarily. They temporarily are using it for something else. They temporarily said, we're using it for business, so we're parted from Schreiber. We're parted from Tevillah. But you, the guy who gets it, now in the end, you have a Kli that a guy made. The guy made the Kli, and you now own it. You, the Yid, own it. You have to title it. Okay, the fact that in between the middle guy didn't have to title it.
If the middle guy bought it as a Kli Schreiber.
So like he said, every store will be like that. Otherwise, anytime I buy a Kli, you'd say, if I walk into any store, and I walk into Target, and I buy a plate, you say, so Mr. Target was...
I bought it, not as Kli Schreiber.
I bought it from no guy, from not a plate. But for him, it wasn't a plate. I said, it was not Kli Schreiber. For him, it was Kli Schreiber. So you say, no, of course not, because Lamai says, I have a Kli that used to belong to a guy. That's what I have a Kli that used to belong to a guy. The fact that there was a middleman in there who, for him, it wasn't a Kli. The truth is, anybody who makes a Kli is automatically for Schreiber. I mean, unless Moshe made it for himself, anybody who makes a Kli.
They're meant to be one-time deals. It's not typical. If everybody would take pickle jars and use them, reuse them, I don't think the Moshe would say it's happened.
Right, so that's what we're thinking here, is that it would allow me to take this one out, but it wouldn't allow me to turn it into a new bottle. Since the guy's going to throw it out anyhow, that means it's been started from its beginning, and I'm making it from scratch. Okay, we have to think that part over. In fact, we actually do this. Okay, now, I have one...
This applies to the Merle Diskin also.
By what?
This has nothing to do with Moshe and Merle Diskin. This is a separate heter. This Merle Diskin can say this heter also.
He might...
By Illinois Night, that's not the type of trade.
He might agree, he might not. Merle Diskin just... The part that he says, which is, I'm allowed to empty, I don't have to think about title. That logic, I didn't say they don't agree with each other. I'm saying each one is its own svara. That svara, if I can empty it out, doesn't help me, doesn't help Mr. Illinois Nut. But he might agree with what Moshe said also.
Why shouldn't he be true?
Maybe he thinks I could have
Yes, so maybe
what did you say?
Somebody threw out Chavias in those days.
Yeah.
They
kept it. Okay.
Right, there's nothing to do. Exactly, nothing to do. Why should he be...
I did separate lines of reasoning. There's two songs. Yeah, now, one last question I have, which is, this idea to say that it's Klei Schreiber, you have to just think is, whether that helps, maybe we don't have an explanation, for a tuna can. What I mean is like this. What happens if Mr. Duggan, it's a Jewish person, makes tuna? Well, the reason why I'm picking on that case is the tuna can is also used to cook the food. So before, aside from the fact that it's a packaging material to bring the food to my house, they cook the food in that can also. So in that case, is that also going to be a patur? We're going to say is, for him it's Klei Schreiber? For him it's a pot. For him, it's not a pot. Why is that Schreiber?
You gotta cook it when you sell the tuna. I mean, according to Chazonish, that the closed cans are not a case of Muktzah Shabbos.
Yes, for sure. There are those who say that. Yes, in Sicilia he speaks about that.
We know that.
No, he says the fact that when I open it up, I make it into a kli tells me that in its sealed form, it's not a kli. He talks that's a possibility.
Is this having to do with that if you're doing a second kli that you're actually going to be able to use afterwards?
Yeah, that's connected to that. The fact that if I open it up, that doesn't apply to a wine bottle because the wine bottle was a fine bottle before, but the tuna can, until now it's a sealed thing, it's useless. You can't get to the food. When I open it up, I made it into a kli. That Hilchos Shabbos he brings in. That Hilchos Shabbos part of it maybe rolls into the Tuesday. I made it into a kli now. I'm the guy who made it into a... Okay, we're sort of going to continue next time.